You are watching the New American Media. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you very much for sticking around with us. My name is Brian Engelman. Thank you for joining us here on Agree to Disagree at thenewamericanmedia.com. Couple of quick points. If you're not following us on Twitter, please do so. We're at American_media_. If you are not liking our Facebook page, come on, man. Stop waiting. Go to The New American Media and like our Facebook page. And if you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, please click subscribe. YouTube.com/The New American Media. And we are just about ready to relaunch thenewamericanmedia.com. We still have some good stuff up there. Go ahead and check out our home base. We are back talking with Blake Walley. He's also known as Blake the Eccentric. Blake and I co-host on his program over on freedomizerradio.com on Mondays from noon to 1:30. So if you want to check him out, it's at freedomizerradio.com. His show is Eccentric Perspective, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, noon to 1:30. Blake, we're back. I don't know where you want to pick this up. How about Fast and Furious? You know, you were following this story, and it's we've had a lot of back and forth arguing and finger pointing. What are the results of this latest Fast and Furious information that's coming out?
Well, they've been stonewalling basically for well over a year and a half on this. It's pretty clear that they're hiding a lot of information. They were caught red-handed. They had of course, they basically gave a bunch of weapons to Mexican drug cartels, and we've had one border agent killed with these weapons, and I'm looking today. It's probably been over 100 people in Mexico that have been killed with these weapons. And, of course, no results. They found Eric Holder in contempt, the Attorney General, in contempt of court. They won't release all the documents. Then, of course, nothing happened. How do you arrest the top cop? That can't be an easy task. And then it kind of disappeared for a while. And I guess there's some new information now. I mean, I saw some articles yesterday saying that they're basically exonerated Eric Holder, and they still won't release the information. Of course, they also Obama pulled out the executive privilege card to protect the information, so that should tell you everything you want to know, that there's obviously a cover-up. It's going to be embarrassing. It could be a potential Watergate. It would be a huge disaster. And I guess the latest is that he was on, as you said, Obama was on Univision, I guess that's the Spanish, or is it TV channel, Spanish language channel, and Obama was on, and they let him have it. It wasn't like he got interviewed by, George Stephanopoulos or Diane Sawyer. I mean, he actually had somebody that really wanted to ask a serious question. And so I guess this lady asked, she said that you told me during an interview that you and Mr. Holder did not authorize the Fast and Furious operation that allowed 2,000 weapons from the U.S. into Mexico, and they were in the drug trafficking cartel's hands. So they said, I think that up to 100 Mexicans may have died, and also American agent Brian Terry. There's a report that 14 agents were responsible for the operation, but shouldn't the Attorney General, Eric Holder, shouldn't he have known about this, and should you fire him? And Obama kept coming up with, talking points. And he also even lied, and even ABC, I was ripping on a couple of their pundits, but even ABC said that it was a lie because Obama tried to blame it on Bush, and Bush did have something called Operation, was it Gunwalker, I believe?
Wide receiver?
Yeah, there was a couple of them. Yeah, or they'd go by different names, but yes, these sorts of things have been going on for a while. Potentially, you got the Iran-Contra scandal, so there's been some kind of dirty foreign policy. There's been some things that have been going on behind the scenes that aren't very good, and it looks like they got busted red-handed on it. And supposedly this was to blame the Second Amendment, and they got caught. So, and now when you got the top cop of the country, it's kind of hard to just bring him. You can't just bring him down that easily, especially when the president's got your back and pulls out the executive privilege card. But yes, they still haven't released all the documents, and I guess they're just scrambling on what do you do. So this story keeps developing. I don't know if this is going to go past the election or not, or how, or what the next step is, really. But they did ask some tough questions, and why aren't they releasing the rest of the papers? And Obama said that they've released thousands of papers. But, of course, yes, they have released thousands of papers, but not everything, because there's also a possibility that Obama might have known something about this. So we've got the highest levels of our law enforcement and our Justice Department engaged in criminal activity. But what do you do when, like I said, the top cops in the legal department? How do you deal with that? Who arrests those top people? They are the top people. They're supposed to be above the law. It should be like inconceivable that they would be capable of doing such things. So what do we do?
I had a conversation with Ben Swan, the journalist that had a chance to interview Mr. Obama for 5 minutes in Cincinnati. Ben was on our program last week, and I kind of quoted that I am above the law. That scene from South Park where just right. The guy just blurs out, "I am above the law," and it's just. Who's gonna? There's a Simpsons it reminds me of too, where Lisa's talking to Homer about becoming a vigilante, and Lisa says, "Well, Dad, if you're the police, who will police the police?" Homer shrugs and goes, Coast Guard." But it's a legitimate question. If you gain all of this control and power, who's left to check and balance what you're up to? Because the counter argument, Blake, that you hear is, Blake, that's ridiculous to think that this administration in any sort of way would want to go to this elaborate measure to set up the Second Amendment so that we could try to pass pretty ridiculous legislation that could violate the Second Amendment and seize the firearms from the American people. That's obvious to some people in this country. What's your response to someone that says there's no way this is complicated like that, and there's no way there's a hidden agenda to disarm the American people?
You know what? They need to release all the documents. Why are they stonewalling? Why won't they just show the documents and prove their innocence? Why are they pulling out the executive privilege card? And you're talking about the investigation into this. Here's the other important point, and this was Maria Elena Salinas of Univision, through a translator, asked Obama also, because of course, there's some corruption, there's some problems. So who does the investigation with the Justice Department? Guess what? The Justice Department. They conducted their own internal investigation.
Right.
And, of course, they didn't really find anything. So the host of this Univision says, let's have an independent investigation, because at the end of the day, this is the Justice Department investigating its boss and is saying they're not at fault. Why don't we have, very briefly, an independent investigation that is not done by the Justice Department? So, that seems pretty straightforward to me, but here's Obama answered. Well, understand that not only have we had multiple hearings in Congress, but the Inspector General is put in place specifically to be independent from the Attorney General. This Attorney General's report was not a whitewash in any way. Okay, well, there you go. So everyone go back to bed. But anyway, going back to Obama's words, he says, it was tough on the Justice Department, and it indicated that potentially more supervision was needed. Oh, okay, so people should have known in some cases, even if they didn't actually know. This is the words from Obama. So clearly, this isn't like your typical, softball, ABC, MSNBC type of questioning where you pretty much have the questions all scripted ready in front of you. So he actually did, I guess, maybe an off-the-cuff thing. I'm not quite sure, but when faced with somebody asking a real question, they clearly look like they're off guard. So as the final words from Obama, so I think independent, honest, it was a clear assessment of what had gone wrong in that situation. So there you go. So they're investigating their own problem, and I guess their solution. I guess they just need a few more supervisors. Is basically the solution. And don't worry about the rest of the documents. Don't worry about the executive privilege. Nothing to see here. Everyone go back to bed. And if anything, it's just politicizing and whatever. But anyway, I think I'm done ranting on that one.
But it's
any other? Yeah.
No, it makes a lot of sense. The answer that's a non-answer, the executive privilege, nothing to hide here. It just makes you. Wait, by the way, Blake, how many rounds of ammunition have recently been purchased by this same federal government that says it's not arming enemies, says that it is aligning with our allies geopolitically, saying that they are protecting the southern border, saying that they're not trying to come against the Second Amendment rights of all of the United States citizens, and they're not snooping into all of your emails and phone calls and GPS location information. What else is going on? Didn't they recently purchase a little bit of ammunition, the government?
A little bit. It was. It started out with something innocent. It was like 450 million rounds of ammunition, and that was
innocent.
Pretty bombshell. That was a pretty big deal.
Super innocent.
And then we flash forward a few weeks later, and then it's another 750 million on top of that, and a couple other smaller purchases, and we're looking at somewhere between 1.4 to 1.6. Why don't we just round it off and call it an even 1.5 billion rounds of ammunition, which is a lot of that, which is to be used domestically. It's by continental government agencies, I guess. So Department of Homeland Security, a lot of hollow point ammunition that can't be used outside of the United States by Geneva Convention rules. And one of the other disturbing things is that they pulled up a couple 100,000 recently. There was a lot of sniper ammunition. So I've heard conflicting reports that why would they need sniper ammunition? So is that crowd control? Are they preparing for civil unrest? Are they preparing for economic collapse? Are they preparing, basically to have the angry people that are losing their homes and everything? Are they going to start fighting back against the government? Are they going to try to take over? Are they going to, we can use our imaginations and spell this out, but yes, they've purchased an enormous amount of ammunition, and they don't seem to really want to talk about it. So when they've been confronted on it, they kind of whitewash the whole deal with some Social Security stuff. I don't know if you want to get into those specific details, but it should be alarming enough that they're making a big purchase order. What are they going to use that for, and why are they trying not to talk about it?
Well, it's a very thinly veiled meaning behind a Tea Party movement in 2009, 2010, where the citizens had had enough, and they'll step on board the boat and flip the product over and say, we've had it. We've drawn our line in the sand. We have had it with what you're currently doing to us. We are in charge of what happens here, and you are screwing it up and need to be replaced. That's what the Tea Party was back in the 1700s. It was the people that had finally had enough, and they drew their line in the sand and said, you will no longer oppress me. And now you can think of it with the Stamp Act and the taxes that were being put on all pieces of paper, whether it was playing cards or newspapers or anything. And that's kind of the tax argument we're having today. But if you look at Occupy Wall Street and all of these spontaneous outbreaks all across northern Africa and spreading through the Middle East and Europe right now, it sure reminds me of how Occupy kind of got together and started getting violent in certain cities like Oakland. We saw it across the country with massive arrests, and then the police are obviously becoming militarized to deal with this thing that they consider to be like a domestic threat of a civil war, I guess that they would call it. I mean, people would look at all of these pieces of information and say, well, you would just be a conspiracy theorist. That's the phrase that people who are too tired to think just throw
or
out
barely
there.
Pay attention.
They don't want to have to do the research. They don't want to have to debate you on it. They just want to say, look, you're a Looney Tunes, stop it. But it's really getting harder and harder and harder to ignore at least 2 or 3 of these things connecting in an uncomfortable way. What's your response to that?
I mean, it's disturbing because you want to, tell people about it, but a lot of people don't pay enough attention to it, and it sounds crazy when you're trying to tell people like that. If their lives are going fine, and then you go, hey, did you know the government's buying 1.5 billion rounds of ammunition? I mean, it's shocking to them. They don't know how to deal with it, and then especially if you try to talk to a lot of, I have a lot of smart liberal friends, but they get a lot of their news from, New York Times or perhaps MSNBC or various outlets, and I think they're well-meaning enough people, but they're underinformed. They don't get to hear these sorts of discussions. They don't hear about the big ammo purchases. They don't hear about NDAA. They don't hear about Fast and Furious because their media chooses not to cover that. They don't. The media is not. Unfortunately, it's become it's become drawn on party lines. You've got your liberal media, and then you've got your conservative media, and it's like they're whatever candidate is running or is president or running against them, they can never do wrong, and it's unfortunate that we can't have a little bit more I mean, the media, in my mind, is supposed to protect us from corruption, but they're not. They don't do that anymore. Now they're basically bought and paid for. So,
well,
go ahead.
No, it really is a complicated conversation to try to get across to people, and that's why you and I both do radio. We've said before we'd rather be playing video games. We'd rather be doing something else. We'd rather be, Blake and I are both quasi-independent people that try to do our own things and have some flexibility in our lives. But I think we would much rather not have to feel like we need to be the pit bull, guarding the property at night.
Right.
It really feels like people are sneaking on this property and they mean me harm. It really is starting to feel like, whether it's a global issue. In Libya, a guy could have felt like people were sneaking onto his property, trying to rape him, kill him, and then drag his body through a group of people and take pictures and bloody handprint smears across the embassy. There's a Kurt Cobain lyric that says, just because you're paranoid don't mean they're not after you. So at what point does an ambassador in Libya need to trust his gut and say something is wrong? At what point do we need to trust our gut and say something is wrong? And ask people, hey, man, I don't care who you voted for last time. I don't care who you're thinking about voting for this time. I don't care what your favorite sports team is. By the way, go Browns. It doesn't matter. All of these things don't matter. But do you want freedom and liberty? Because I want maximum freedom and liberty. That's what's afforded to us. And it feels like there are people sneaking onto our property getting ready to do us harm. Do you want to be free? Do you want to be able to make your own decisions? Do you want people to leave you alone so you can go barbecue, have a few beverages, hang out with friends and family, have some fun, go check out some concerts, maybe watch a good movie or something? Isn't that what you want? Okay, if you want that too, that's what we want. Can we start at that point and start connecting these dots here? Because are your liberal friends, are they the same ones, Blake, that were riled up with the Patriot Act and the Iraq War and George W. Bush and Halliburton and Dick Cheney? Were they fired up about that stuff and now they just went silent under the Obama administration?
I would say largely what you're saying is true, and that's what the disturbing thing is, because if you swapped Obama for a Republican, if this was McCain right now or an extension of Bush and Cheney, and the same things were going on, NDAA, Fast and Furious, I mean, there would be an absolute uproar. All these new wars, the new spending, QE3, I mean, there would be bloody murder. And that's why it's so sad to see people get manipulated by the media and let them do the thinking for them. They trust the media, and the media is not on their side. And it's unfortunate. And it doesn't matter left or right. It's no longer a left-right issue. This is way beyond that. This is about right versus wrong. And as you say, I don't really want to do the radio and stuff like that. It's not like I really wanted to get involved on this level or anything like that. I would just rather live in a normal world where we don't have the corruption, where I have the American dream back, where I don't have to think about these sorts of things because they shouldn't exist. There shouldn't be a QE3. There shouldn't be a Fast and Furious. There shouldn't be an NDAA. Something has gone wrong. And that's why I've, chosen to, volunteer a lot of my time to try to fight this, because I sincerely believe in what I'm doing, and that there is no future if we don't defeat this corruption problem ASAP.
How about we go into overtime on this segment for just a second, because there's something a little. Let's take it another direction. If we're right here, willing to have this conversation real quick. Okay? And we're connecting dots and just considering options, right? That's all we're doing, right? We're not saying we know with 100% certainty anything, are we, Blake?
Yeah, we're close, and if we're wrong, I want to be called out. I want to be corrected. We just want to sit down, have a nice, honest discussion about it, and get on the same page. That's it.
Okay. Let me put this out there. Let me just read you some lyrics to a song for a second. I like to do this on Eccentric Perspective. And I'm going to do it here. I just want to get your thoughts. Let's just consider the 2012, December 21st, 2012 angle of things.
3 months exactly from now. Go ahead.
Wow, here we go. 3 months. Do you know where your children are? It's 9 p.m. Do you know where your children are? Yeah, we're 3 months away from December 21st, 2012. And let's just consider something for a moment. These are lyrics to a song called Exo-Politics. Exo-Politics by the band Muse. I quote them often on your program, Blake, over on Eccentric Perspective at freedomizerradio.com. But just check this out for a second, because it's really starting to feel, and we're hearing more and more people say that whatever's happening in government with global politics, it really feels like an ultimate battle for good versus evil. It's starting to feel metaphysical. It's starting to feel spiritual. It's starting to feel as though there is a greater play occurring, and we just happen to be so wrapped up on one little component of it, we're looking at the jingling keys instead of the big picture in front of us. So toss this out there. Let me get your thoughts on this, Blake.
Sure.
Exo-Politics by Muse. Open skies over me. I have waited patiently. I wait for a sign. As conspiracies unwind, will you slam shut or free your mind? Or stay hypnotized? When the Zetas fill the skies, will our leaders tell us why? Fully loaded satellites will tell you nothing but our minds. And I've waited patiently, and I wait for the sign. Carried through the centuries, secrets locked up, and loaded on my back, well, it weighs me down. When the Zetas fill the skies, it's just our leaders in disguise. Fully loaded satellites, we can't get nothing but our minds. I'm waiting patiently and I wait for the sign. I'm waiting patiently and I wait for the sign. What if there's something a little outside, as by the way, this is the day where I'm talking to my web designer out here in Los Angeles, and we can hear it. The space shuttle is flying over his head on his telephone, and he says, it's probably going right over you right about now. Went outside, I didn't see it, but I could hear it. It was really loud. Let's just ponder the concept right around the time when Neil Armstrong passes away, when we're shutting down the NASA space program, when people are talking about what if the things happening on this planet are part of a greater design, a much larger group of things occurring in the universe. What say you, Blake?
It's funny. I like the lyrics to that, but there was something I noticed this time. You're talking about Zetas. Fill the skies, is that right? Zetas?
Correct.
Yeah, do you know what the Zetas are?
Kind of.
Yeah, well, I've heard this because, I don't get into some of the fringier conspiracy theories anymore, but just when I think of Zetas, I think of the Zeta Reticuli, which is supposedly like the race, like the alien beings that everybody knows, the gray triangular head, big black eyes. That is supposedly what a Zeta is. It's a Zeta alien from the I guess, was it from the Zeta Reticuli constellation or something? I remember I used to study like a website for entertainment reasons called zetatalk.com, and supposedly, you talk about them doing abductions, crop circles, stuff like that, maybe different factions, whether they're good or bad. I can't really, we could get into a lot of detail on that, but I don't really follow the alien stuff anymore, but that's something interesting. So I don't know if he's saying there's going to be a alien invasion or if they're out there keeping an eye on us. I don't really know exactly what to take from that, but I'm a big fan of Muse. I do like a lot of their lyrics, but that one is a little bit strange for me because that's what it reminds me of.
Well, I know that in the United Nations they have an Exo-Politics department or division of how to communicate with another intelligence should it reach out publicly. I call those things graylians, by the way. That's the phrase I use. But let's not forget about Project Bluebeam. Project Bluebeam is where a false flag or staged event could rile people up. You have a time now where the Prophet Muhammad and the concept of Quetzalcoatl returning to the earth from his chariot of fire from the heavens, that's what the Mayans were talking about, the concept of Christ returning in the end times and battling over this one little piece of area over in Israel. Doesn't it kind of feel like we're kind of close to that right about now? Because Project Bluebeam is where you can fake something to happen so that you can implement a prison planet or some sort of answer in response. And I know this. I watched Tupac Shakur perform at Coachella. They had a hologram of him on stage with Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. A hologram of Tupac, who's been dead for 15 years, performing on stage. Is it so impossible to think that there might be a way to project some sort of holographic image as a spiritual being to usher in one sort of, perhaps a one-world religion, a one-world governance, a one-world currency, a one-world frame of mind, to calm all this down, to have a leader that can save us? Because that's really what the concept of the Antichrist is. It's that someone's going to pretend that they got all your answers and they got your best interest in mind, and you just got to be careful. I hear people connecting these dots, and it's very interesting to think about whether or not I'm necessarily agreeing with it. It makes a hell of a story, at least.
Yeah, Operation Bluebeam, it's been around for a long time. It's always been popular amongst the conspiracy theorists circle, I guess. I don't know if they can pull. That's always been in the cards, I guess, if they ever got desperate or something to try to unite everybody. The problem is now, I think that things have changed dramatically. I think that too many people are aware of things like Bluebeam. They're too aware of the corruption going on. I think they would have an enormously difficult. I mean, that would be like one of their last-minute desperate attacks. But that is certainly, I believe, that is a real program or something that's been exposed thoroughly. I don't think they can do it now, but there's a lot of things. I think a lot of these things have been exposed to the point where there's just no way that the elites or whatever you want to call them can get away with everything that they've pulled off, supposedly. But anyway.
Well, it's very interesting to think about. I was listening to Pandora. I think I had the Muse channel on, and this song came up, and I started listening. I'm like, dude, this is a good song. I kind of missed it when their album came out. I didn't really get into this song, and then I'm like, hey, what are the lyrics to this? And I start looking. I'm like, well, son of a gun. Let's just imagine if. Let's play that game. What if? Come on, I live in Hollywood. It's all about big stories. It doesn't need to be true, but it needs to get your brain moving, and that at least got my brain moving to think about the concept of good versus evil, maximum freedom and liberty, the right to self-govern versus tyrannical, creepy, demonic forces that want to control, enslave, torture, and destroy.
Yeah, that's what we're in. And I want to make a quick point on that because I know Benjamin Franklin has made that quote. And just to ask people out there, especially if you're a skeptic or if you don't believe in conspiracy theories, and just ask yourself, are you afraid of the government? Are you afraid to look into the issues we're talking about? Are you afraid to speak out? I mean, it's a pretty straightforward question. It should be pretty obvious what the answer is. And if you are scared, or at least in some level, you live in a tyranny. That's pretty much what it is. And was it Franklin that said? Actually, why don't you go ahead and cover that quote, Brian, if you can.
Oh, you want to make sure that you don't pull a George Bush. Fool me once.
Don't paraphrase
fool
it.
me
Yeah.
once. Shame on.
Built it up too much. I'd hate to.
Fool me once. Shame on you. Fool me twice. Shame. Fool me. Yeah, I ain't gonna get fooled again.
Right.
Yeah, I still can't say that quote correctly now because I always think of Bush stammering through it. It was very, very funny. But the Benjamin.
If you fear the yes, but basically it says if the government fears the people, there's liberty. But if the government, sorry, am I going to screw this up again? I built it up too much.
I believe it was Thomas Jefferson who's also attributed to this.
Yeah, I've already messed it up.
I know I don't have it in front of me either, but I was thinking of two of them. If Benjamin Franklin, to paraphrase, said that he who would trade liberty for security deserves neither and will surely lose both. So think about that with the NDAA, with the Patriot Act, with any of this cybersecurity stuff, with an internet kill switch. Fight against that crap. Don't let anyone get that kind of power. Don't ever give away your liberty or freedom, because you're going to lose your liberty and your freedom. You will not have this quote-unquote security. You're just going to be helpless. But I think what you were saying is when the people fear the government, there is tyranny, and when the government fears the people, you have liberty.
Yes, if the government fears the people, yes, there's liberty. If the people fear the government, there is tyranny. So that it should be pretty much obvious where we sit.
I would tend to agree with that statement, Blake. I'll tell you what, why don't we do this? Let's take a quick break. We'll come back on the other side, finish this thing up here. I want to get into QE3. So if you have some comments on QE3, Blake, let's get that on the other side. I'll play a quick commercial here. I want to remind everybody, Blake and I co-host a program over on freedomizerradio.com. There's a lot of live radio there. You can check it out right now, 24-hour chat rooms. You click play, you listen live. You just got to refresh the browser, make sure you get the current shows. And that's Monday, Wednesday, Thursday from noon to 1:30 p.m. Pacific. On freedomizerradio.com. The show is called Eccentric Perspective. You can follow Blake on Twitter at Eccentric99. My name is Brian Engelman. This is TNAM Radio. We are on the Agree to Disagree program, and if you have not liked our Facebook page, please like our Facebook page, The New American Media. Check out our home base that we're currently rebuilding right now, thenewamericanmedia.com. Make sure that you're following us on Twitter at American_media_. And please, if you're listening to this after the fact, click that little subscribe button right there. And tell some of your friends and leave your comments below. You know, we're looking for mostly civil commentary here. We're just looking for a good conversation. We're not hearing these interesting conversations on the other outlets that we're finding, so we're creating this as a medium so we can have this chat. That's the point. It's supposed to be between all of us. It's not just supposed to be where you absorb the stuff that we're spewing at you, believe our propaganda. We want a conversation. We really do. So we'll be back on the other side. Thanks for listening. Hi, Brian from thenewamericanmedia.com. Last year I had this idea. I wanted to start a website of my own, not just something, a presence on Twitter, a presence on Facebook, and have a thing. I wanted a website. I wanted a home base for all of the ideas and things I'm interested in. I wanted live radio. I wanted to communicate with the globe. I was tired of being spoon-fed dogma by corporate interests and just, here, believe this. I said, no, I think there's something underneath the surface, but I didn't know how to do it. So I contacted Ted Distel of disteldesign.com. Ted walked us through the process of, okay, you want videos, you want to do quotes of the day, you want to have a spiritual section, you want to have a 1984 watch where government's intruding and private corporations are intruding into your privacy. Yeah, those are the things that I was interested in. Ted walked me through the process. We built thenewamericanmedia.com, and I encourage you to go online and take a look at our site. That's what he's capable of. Please, if you have an idea, go to disteldesign.com. That's DISTEL design.com.
Have you ever considered adopting a pet to be part of your family? Our animal companions can be just as close to us as our human companions. If you're considering adoption, please visit your local shelter and adopt a pet today. Shelter pets make the best pets.
Follow thenewamericanmedia.com on Twitter at American_media_.
You are watching The New American Media.